So, this is exciting. Allison had other plans, and when her schedule opened up, we were able to get her booked within 2 weeks for the show, and she told us that she has quite the history with Florida, which I was fascinated by. Before Comic-Cons were such a thing, her show had such popularity, which is a wonderful thing to have, that you guys were invited to come down and tour. Can you talk a bit about that experience and just being so young on top of that and not having so much life experience and just have this opportunity?
Yeah, apparently some time has passed, but we're going to pretend that didn't happen. First of all, hello. Nice to see all of you. Thanks for coming to hear me babble. I appreciate it. How many of you are local, like you're Floridians? Excellent. How many of you were here in the 90s? Sure. I am so geographically challenged. I will say yes to anything that you ask in terms of south, north, east, west. Okay. I'm like, yeah, it's all good. So back in the 90s, when the Big Comfy Couch came out first and was on the air, started in Canada, and then PBS picked it up. Different PBS affiliates throughout the US. So it wasn't on like the national PBS, it was all the local affiliates that would choose to pick it up. And Florida, thank you, because Orlando and Tampa in particular were huge fans of the Big Comfy Couch. So I was here many times throughout the 90s, starting kind of in 95 right through 2000 and change. I was here with various toy stores, like home, Time Life Home Video and books. They were promoting a lot of our stuff. And then of course when the Molly doll came out, that was a big thing too. So the different store chains like F.A. Schwartz, Store of Knowledge, which was associated with PBS, Zany Brainy, Doodle Cadoodle, just all of these different unique, F.A. Schwartz, okay, so that one was the big one, but there were littler ones, even Target, a couple of appearances I think. That's what I was doing. I was touring all across the country, but coming to Florida a lot to promote the Big Comfy Couch. Even QVC. I was on QVC countless times selling stuff. So Tampa was a big part of my experience in the 90s and promoting the Big Comfy Couch and always having a wonderful experience. So it's lovely to be back. I really appreciate all of the warmth and kindness that I've been receiving today, just meeting people who have grown up on the show, or their family has grown up on the show, or the next generation in their family has or is growing up on the show. It's surreal, Byron, to have done all of these appearances in the 90s, and I would have met some of you as little children. Like, we probably somewhere have photos of you coming to a store and you're sitting next to me or on my lap. We have a photo, and then I signed an autograph. Like, it's just wild. I've met a couple of people today that happened to, and now, like, their kids, they're sharing their old videotapes with their kids, and they're loving it. So, we're not going to talk about what that means in terms of my age, but having that opportunity to just, I don't know, see how you're doing after all these years, checking in, and it seems like you're a good bunch of people. It seems like people who grew up watching the Big Comfy Couch are kind and generous, empathetic, very giving, and it's lovely to get to know all of you after all these years.
When it comes to those appearances, it's interesting because you get to do a bit of live improvisation with the character. So you do the scripted version, and then you get to be in the real world and deliver that experience to fans that, only people that dress up as Santa often get that chance to be out as their character. Can you talk, like, when you would feel like you just hit a home run, like that day was just great, like that was funny, or we were all connecting, like what was that live sort of theater experience like interacting with fans?
it's weird. You talk about, oh, I was funny that day or whatnot. It's past that point for me. It's not really like I'm going to go out there and put on a performance anymore, because I feel like the show has been such a rock of people's lives for so long, and it's been such a core part of me. Whether, it doesn't matter that I'm not doing the episodes anymore. After doing Comfy Couch, I became a mom. And in fact, the final season of The Big Comfy Couch in 2002, when we filmed that season, I was pregnant. I was very pregnant. I was 6 months pregnant. And it instantly translated into being a mom. And so much of what I took, not just from playing Lonnette on this show, but from what I would get from parents when I would meet them. So as Lonnette, before being a mom, before really having any experience with children, meeting parents who would stand in line for hours on end, just the patience that they had and what they would go through to make their children happy, not in like a petulant, spoiled brat kind of way, but just like things from the heart that really mattered to them. It was worth whatever it took to make it happen. And I carried that with me. So my experiences from playing Lonnette both on camera and then afterwards in real life, meeting people, that had a huge impact on my life as a mom, and then years later directing children's television. I got to direct a lot of the live-action Blue's Clues, which we actually shot in the same studio where we did The Big Comfy Couch. I know. All of that, there's been such a full circle journey, which is why it's trippy to be back in Tampa as well, doing all of this. And I don't think it's, with Couch it goes so much deeper than the whole like, hey, I gave you a cool sound bite. Like there's shows that I've worked on and that's really what people are after. It's like, can you say this line, can you say that line? Which is particularly popular with animation and stuff. It makes sense, right? Because it's my voice that they recognize. But with Couch, it has been 100% about those real life experiences, the stuff that isn't in front of the camera, getting to be a wish for a dying child, which that will do a number on your brain. Working with a lot of hospitals and working with a lot of charities behind the scenes. Even after I went separate ways from the production company for Couch. The one executive producer, John Leach, he knew that I was privately still doing charity work, and somebody else had the rights to have like the Lonnette appearances, and he privately let me keep one of the costumes so that I could still do stuff with like Doomsday Flight and Sick Kids Hospital and the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Because he was like, no, you need to be able to go do that. Can you imagine saying no to being able to, he got it at least. But that's a testament, I think all the producers and everyone involved on Couch, they were also parents. So they understood at the end of the day the most important thing is the child at home that's watching the show and who the show is having an impact on. So it's not about, did I make you laugh? It's about you now coming to see me and sharing your story about what Couch meant to you, what it meant to your grandmother when you would watch together and she's no longer here, your single dad who raised you and your siblings, and how this was the show that kind of brought you all together. Whatever it might be, that's honestly what I look forward to in these days. It's hearing your story and after all these years what that show has meant to you.
That's a very powerful answer. Sweet doesn't quite cover it. The thing that is so impressive among so many details, I want to talk about being one of two in the entire universe as we know it, people to bring Lydia Dietz to life, and just how old were you when you got that part? And with the Tim Burton movie, were you allowed to watch it? Did your parents worry about, oh, this is a little, you know, Beetlejuice is hitting on women and looking up skirts, and maybe we just let her come in, you know, fresh and have a fresh take? Or did you get a chance to experience the Tim Burton masterpiece?
Oh, I experienced it. I was in grade 9 when that movie came out, and I was like,
digging it.
It was I dressed in black or black and white stripe. I was in the middle of like painting my room black and white, like I was painting my radiator. For those of you who don't know, in Canada we get winters, and our old houses were heated with oil, which would heat up the hot water tank, and then these radiators would disperse hot water throughout the house. It's actually a really good environmental and healthy way to heat, but it can be a pain in the butt. Anyway, you're getting so much education right now, Byron. So I went in my room and I was painting it black and white. When the movie came out, I went to see it with my parents, and I had already been voicing cartoons for a number of years by that point. Because it was grade 9, I was 13, turning 14. So my first cartoon was Ewoks, and that was with Nelvana, a Toronto-based company. And I did a bunch of their cartoons after that. So then we go to see this movie, and my mom turns to me towards the end of the movie, and she's like, "This is so you." And I'm like, you know, still sitting there like, my people, right? Like watching that movie as a kid who is into dead things and wearing all black, but still has feelings and, you know, all that stuff. Just love that movie, mind blown. And she said to me, she's like, "You better hope Nelvana gets the rights to this cartoon, and you gotta go in and get that role, Lydia." And I'm just like, uh-huh. Cut to, I'm now 15 years old, so it's just a year later, and the breakdown goes out for Lydia in Beetlejuice. Nelvana's doing the cartoon, and it was the first part I had ever really worked my butt off to get. Like, I sat there and I listened to the entire movie over and over again, and I got her voice down pat. Went in, nailed the audition, got a call back. I was sunburned in Florida on March break, so I couldn't make the callback. So they went ahead and did like a demo callback with somebody else. Didn't work out. So when I got home, they brought me back in. We did it. My first time meeting Stephen Ouimet. For those of you who don't know, Stephen Ouimet is the voice of Beetlejuice in the animated series, and he is unbelievable. Incredibly talented actor. And we just clicked, and during the callback, that's when they kind of broke my heart, and they were like, yeah, that's a great voice, like the movie. But we'd like you to actually just kind of do more like your own voice, go a little bit younger, make her a little bit more friendly. And I was so sad, because I'd worked so hard to nail that voice. But it worked out, and it actually really made a lot of sense with the direction that they went with the cartoon. So the cartoon it's so much fun, and they threaded that needle, and I think it's a testament both to everybody involved in the writing side and the producing side, but Stephen Ouimet, he managed to do that voice, that gravelly Beetlejuice voice, but he did it with this innocence. He did it with like a big puppy dog personality. And you wouldn't think that you could put those things together, but it worked. He did it, and it was amazing. And so when the musical came out, has anybody here seen the musical? Right. Yeah. For Beetlejuice's character, it's far more taking a page from our animated series than from the film. They're friends, he's not the bad guy. They make a lot of jokes about how, yeah, he was kind of creepy in the movie, but, you know, he's moved on. So now looking at the trailer for the sequel, it looks like even in that they're taking a page. Where, yeah, he's still kind of creepy, but he's not the real ultimate bad guy. So I am really excited to see what happens with the sequel.
I think we all are, and
Yeah.
it's just so cool to have that moment, and that it's now available. I've seen it in many stores now. You can get the show, or at least season 1.
Yeah, they. I think Warner Brothers released the entire series on DVD not that long ago. We'll see. We'll see what happens. I know it's a matter of like how well is the sequel going to do. Does Tim want to do something next? Does he want to bring the series back? But here's the cool part. The team from the original X-Men series that is responsible for overseeing and consulting on the new X-Men series with great success. The same writers who did Beetlejuice for Fox Kids back in the 90s. And I'm like, you guys have shown you know how to do this. You know how to restart a series, basically pick up where it left off, right? So who's to say? Wouldn't that be awesome? Who here would like Beetlejuice to come back? Basically like it never ended, right?
I'm all for that.
Yeah.
I feel like you've had this incredible run with characters that everybody can relate to in different ways, and it's such a broad spectrum. But with the character of Jubilee and how she ruins VCRs all the time, what was it like getting past Sidney not wanting his Beetlejuice star to be the sort of fish out of water character in the pilot for X-Men, and then just the heavy drama that they would try to capture a lot with her character. What do we ever do to you? You were born, like that moment. She gets all this sort of like,
I didn't ask to be a mutant. Why is this happening? So when he talks about Sidney, that's Sidney Iwanter, who was the producer at Fox Kids, overseeing both Beetlejuice and then into X-Men. And Sidney was so sick of my voice as Lydia from those numerous episodes, like 90-something episodes. He was like, I don't care who gets Jubilee as long as it isn't Allison Court. I cannot listen to her voice. Another something. So I didn't get the part when I auditioned. And then once again, they recorded with somebody else. It did not work. It wasn't just with Jubilee, it was with a lot of the voice actors. And so they brought in some serious stage actors. I was also a stage actor, as well as voice and TV. So there was a lot of push from the team. It's like, we know she can act, we know she can do this, she has a lot of experience, let's bring her in. So they brought me in, but Sidney was there at every recording, and he made it very clear. He was like, I didn't want you on this. I don't want to hear Lydia. She's not Lydia, this isn't a Saturday morning cartoon. So you need to show that you can actually act by doing a different character. So, when I would normally have been in my element going in to record a cartoon and playing a teenage girl with some sass, I'm like, I think I can do that. All of a sudden, I was like, I don't know which way is up. I'm like really full of a lot of self-doubt. And realizing that, okay, there's something more serious going on here. I don't fully understand it right now. But everyone is taking this very seriously, and I need to as well. Turns out that's the winning combination to get that to come out for the character, right? Because I think that comes through with Jubilee. Because what you're seeing was how I was feeling at that moment. Though there was so much love in the room with all of the other actors, and they were very protective, very, very kind. But it was a fish out of water situation that first season for sure, recording Jubilee. And Sidney, to his credit, he broke me of the Lydia voice. Like, I lived here. It had become such a way of me talking, Beetlejuice, we have to get to the mutant world. Like, it just kind of lived up in here, and that's how I spoke. And I couldn't get myself away from there. And it was from him pushing me more into like a, you dorks! Like pushing it forward, pushing it away from the nasal cavity, and forcing me every time I opened my mouth to like not have a cute smile and to really think about voice placement. It was the best thing I could have happen. because it allowed me to change up my voice, figure out that I could change my voice, and then book a lot of other work as a result.
Yeah.
So thank you, Sydney.
When it comes to the episodes in X-Men, was there one that you love when you think back on all the great stories the writers put together, whether it was solely focused on Jubilee or just as an ensemble of the characters? I mean, Night of the Sentinels kind of perfect.
Night of the Sentinels is a perfect one. And you know, there's the fairy tale theater that it gets love, it also gets a lot of hate or whatnot, but that was fun. But the problem was, by that point we were recording solo. So it definitely goes back to that first season in recording ensemble. So being in the booth with everybody, and I was usually between, it would be Cal on my left, and then it would either be Chris Potter as Gambit or Norm Spencer as Cyclops. And that was usually, it was us three for our scenes. And then sometimes Catherine Disher, occasionally Ron, certainly in the first 2 episodes. And then I didn't get to work with Nora until a little bit later in the season. But that was great. First season, because we got to work with the other actors, that would be the best.
Did you feel like a great sort of variety of life when you were doing that and company couch, or was it pushing you to the point of being overwhelmed?
It's interesting to think about that. When I look back, it just seemed normal to me. It just seemed normal that, because I had taken that year off. I graduated a year early from high school, so I didn't have a year off before going to university, because I was going into engineering. And I was like, okay, I think I'd like to take a year off and just kind of chill, because I've been working my entire high school career. So it felt normal. I look back now and I'm like, oh my goodness, how was I doing both of these at the same time? The couch only filmed for 5 weeks in the summer. It was an intense shooting schedule. And then occasionally they would, like if there was a teardown day, because they had to build a new set for Couch, that would be the day that they'd get me in for X-Men. So somehow they made it work, and it flowed. I think that's where I felt most comfortable, to be honest, was in the recording booth. Way more so than in a high school hallway or a classroom. I felt way more comfortable in the recording booth and with adults. Yeah.
Some more adult than others.
Yeah.
A lot of horseplay, which is great to keep things light. And smoking too, yeah. They could light up back in the day.
Oh my goodness, I still remember it, and it's still there as like this sort of antiquated artifact from way back when, but this like bronze ashtray, stand ashtray. Oh yeah, you could smoke in the recording booth way back
It would
then.
have been great if they wrote that into the script so you could take your drag on them.
Yes.
Well, what do you say there, kid? Yeah, that'd be fun.
Probably why I didn't get past 5 feet tall.
So once we have just a few more questions, we're going to open up the audience. So just a loud voice and a raised hand would be great for that. But of course, we'd all love to hear it coming back to X-Men 97 in a way where you get to be your character, but also pass the torch to Holly, which is the only time of the recasting that happened in the show, which is pretty special.
Yeah, it was. I love how they did it. Like I can't emphasize that enough. I knew that I would not voice Jubilee again. I made that clear before the show was ever going to be a thing. I've had the privilege of working as a director for a number of years now, and I have directed incredible young talent from all different backgrounds, all different cultures and ethnicities, and there are so many people out there that are ready to take over and play these roles. It didn't make sense for me to voice that character anymore. Certainly not as if she's still a teenager. And I'm like, it's time. It's time to pass the torch. So when they had that part written, and I was actually, there was another part that I was offered, not a mutant, but she would have been in more episodes. But it was like this one, Obsissa coming back in the way that they were doing it, what they had planned, it was the perfect opportunity to do that public passing of the torch. Because I know there are a lot of actors out there who get replaced for whatever reasons. Some are good reasons, some are bad reasons. But even when it's a good reason, they're still upset, or the fan base is upset. And it was incredibly important to me for people to know that I absolutely and unequivocally support Holly taking over the role of Jubilee. So when we started to record it, of course it was during COVID. So I was there by myself in this booth, the same studio that we actually recorded the original series. And the engineer was way in the control room, and then there were all these monitors around. People in California watching me on Zoom. People that I'd never met before, and it was like, sorry, this is weird. And they had some animation to show, so I got to get a sense of what the character looked like and what was going on in the scene, but everything there was all scratch track. So we recorded the dialogue, we played around with the voice, because it was like, well, how, oh gee, Jubilee, do you want to go? But she's a little bit older now, you know, it was about finding that right balance. But then they ended up tweaking the dialogue so many times. I was in probably 3 or 4 more times for ADR. And each time I got to come in, I started to get to hear the new Jubilee voice in some of it. And I was sitting there listening, and I remember the first line I got to hear where it was her voice, and I was like, because she's like, okay, hold on, time out, tell me everything. And that's when Holly does that in that episode. That was the first time I got to hear her. And I was like, oh, that's her. She sounds like me. And then there would be another line, I'm like, but slightly different. But good. But different. But also the same. Like, my brain was breaking into so many different directions. And just at the end, I had goosebumps. And I told our voice director, Meredith Lane, who did a phenomenal job on the show. And I was like, listen, that was Holly, right? That's the new Jubilee. And she's like, yeah, Holly. And I'm like, she needs to know. She sounds amazing, and I'm so happy for her. And can you give her my contact number? Because I would love to do public appearances or interviews with her if and when she's ready, if she wants, because I want people to know that I think she's awesome. And so then, right before the show launched, Holly started texting me, and we started like just little chats, like, I love you, and it was just like this, like little fan for each other thing going on, and what a great experience to have been able to pass the torch to someone who has grown up loving the show. She was a little kid when it came out, and she is so ready to fly with this show and take this character to the next level of Jubilee. Because Jubilee is gonna, you know, if you saw episode 4, my Jubilee has some extra powers that regular Jubilee has not yet discovered. So there's a really cool future in there for Holly's Jubilee, and I think you're going to get to see, I'm hoping you're going to get to see a lot of that in the second and third seasons.
Love that. Well, let's start with some hands raised for some questions right here in the front, sir.
Hey, Allison.
Hi.
Do you remember growing up with Beetlejuice as well? I wasn't scared of him, but I know people were really scared of him. And how were you able to cope with being in the
Anyone who would come to see me and they were scared? I think the most important thing, because there were times, very much like a mall Santa, to what you were saying earlier, when I was doing those appearances, and parents would be there because they knew their kid loved couch, but then they'd wait in line for hours and hours, and then they'd get up to see me, and then suddenly the kid would be like, no, because they would freak out. Very much like taking your child to get a picture with Santa. There's just that, it's an intense moment. And the most important thing was just being like, the parents would be arguing, maybe getting stressed out, and I would be like, it's okay. You don't have to take a picture with me if you don't want to. Can we just talk? My name's Lonnette. And do you like watching the big comfy couch? Do you know Molly? And then they'd usually have a Molly doll, and I'd show my Molly doll, and they would just start talking. And then most of the time, the child would feel okay, but I'd be like, don't force them to sit on my lap or sit near me. I'm gonna sit down off the couch and squat down, and we'll get a picture. And most of the time we got a picture. There was, the rare time when the child just was not, like, I think it had just been too long a day waiting, and they were fine. It was like, yeah, let's not force it. And I would get a picture with mom instead or something. But it was about making sure that they never felt forced into that encounter. That's not going to ever make anything better. Like I've seen the meme that's going around where it's like Lonnette did like the first ever song about consent with the No Means No song, and that episode, and trying to tickle Molly, and she doesn't want to be tickled, and that covers everything. Like whether they're little or they're grown up, you just have to respect if they don't want to be forced into a situation. Don't do it. So you're what? Yeah. I mean, it would be weird if someone had that and then they came to see me.
Sought you out.
I'm like, I feel you set yourself up for a bad moment in life. Yeah.
I remember going to
Cool. I'm glad you liked it.
My friend here, Dr. Doom, with the Wolverine necklace, also.
When did you realize that it was going to be a big hit? Was it something in the studio that
We had no idea. No, didn't realize.
It was hidden from them, honestly, so I wouldn't ask for
So
more
throughout
money.
the 90s, it wasn't something that I thought was any more successful than any other cartoon I was working on. I had just come off of Beetlejuice, which ended up making more episodes than the X-Men original series did. So in my mind, Beetlejuice was more successful than X-Men. But then, a number of years later, they're making the movies. It's like, oh, all right, there you go. I wonder why you guys feel it's a cool property, cool enough to put money in for a feature film. Interesting that you basically stole Jubilee's relationship with Wolverine and gave it to a young rogue. Yeah, cool. Thanks for that. So yeah, no idea at the time, and it wasn't until years later, meeting actors who would come in that I was now directing, and they would come in, I just want to say, you voicing Jubilee in the 90s, that meant everything to me. And thank you for that. And it was like, oh, well, that's really lovely. Thank you. And then, of course, the huge fan push of, like, I can't tell you how many different petitions and, like, emails we would get about, like, bring the show back, bring the show back. So when we finally did get contacted about X-Men 97, it was called, what, Teen Spirit? Yeah, at the time, I didn't think it was real. My agent and I were like, yeah, okay, sure. Yeah, sure she'll voice this thing. Yeah, okay, whatever, right? And even when they sent the NDA and all this stuff, we're like, whatever, fine. And then finally this 24-page thing comes in, and it says Marvel and Disney, and my agent's finally like, this is actually from Marvel and Disney. I'm like, oh, is this real? Is this like a real thing that's happening? Okay. I did not believe it, because as successful as it clearly had been, we hadn't gotten to see that. Like Byron was saying, they hid the fan mail from us, they hid the ratings from us. We never knew about that stuff. So X-Men 97 has really been the first time that we've been able to get out and realize just how popular it was.
Next question, right here, you. Right here with the tattoos.
I know you said that they left you that costumes from the coffee couch. Do you still have anything else that you held on to?
So I kept the costume so that I could still do the charity appearances. And I had a bunch of the plush dolls that were for sale back in the 90s, including one of like the big ones. And that's the one that I would do the store appearances with. So I still have all that stuff. I have a few props, like odds and ends. And then from the touring show that did the mall shows and whatnot, they started to make more couches. We needed couches for the touring show, and then when we came back in season 6, and then when they did season 7, they had to make more couches. Because things, you know, there were a lot of different companies that were out doing tours and mall shows, etc. So I do have one of the couches. And it's one of the later ones because it was made in a way that it comes apart easily and is assembled easily. So I have one of those in my storage unit. Yeah. I have, like, it's too big. I can't put it in my house. So it's in the storage unit.
Great question. The gentleman in the corner.
So, when the things that way they are right now with SAG, do you think they're doing enough to protect the talent for emerging technology like AI?
Sorry, what
How
are
do you
you
feel these deals are working to protect the actual actors from AI voices and giving up your rights forever? And is it, obviously it concerns you, do you feel like we'll be able to get that for Americans and Canadians since you have your own regions?
If SAG is doing what they can do to protect you guys, especially SAG,
I mean, SAG's trying. It blows my mind. It's so dumb that you would use AI for the creative stuff when the easiest job to replace with AI is the CEO. I'm a studio executive. I look at data all day and make decisions for creative things based on that. Oh, I've got an algorithm that can do it better than you. That's what AI is for, right? Now, go away and let the artists do what they do. Because AI can't voices AI. They can't capture nuance and quick emotional change or when there's more than one emotion to convey in a word or sentence. And human beings are complex creatures and we are experiencing a lot of emotions all at once at any one time. And AI can't convey that, nor do we want it to. Like, that's just silly. And the idea that, like, how much money are they making? And they need more money by employing fewer people? Again, that seems dumb because eventually you are going to lose your entire workforce. So who's going to buy your product? Who's going to pay to watch your shows? Who's going to pay to watch your movies and then buy all of the merchandise afterwards if you put everybody out of work?
but SAG is doing something to help you guys.
They're fighting AI with video games right now. So AI kind of got handled for now with animation and whatnot for TV shows and films. But as far as video games are concerned, I mean, that's another aspect. Like, here's the thing. Do we have any people in here who play video games? How do you feel about it when you buy, and the words are buy, purchase, own, digital games, online content, right? And then they take it away from you, and they say you actually don't own it.
Physical.
Are you liking that?
Physical forever.
Yeah, is that respect for the customers? Do you think that when they replace actors with AI, the money they saved is going to be shown to you in a cheaper game? Do you think they're going to drop their prices?
No.
No. Do you think that when they don't pay their programmers and artists and designers the proper wages, do you think that is somehow going to be seen in a discount for the customers? Do you think that going to AI for everything is going to result in a better quality product?
No.
It's gonna
No.
make it
Wants
worse.
to replace the CEOs above.
Thank you. Exactly. So The toughest thing as a person in where we live and the lifestyles that we are used to, the toughest thing we can do is deny ourselves the thing that we want, because we're so used to getting the things that we want. But the strongest vote you have is with your dollar. And if there's a company out there that isn't respecting you as a customer, isn't respecting the common man workforce, isn't respecting the artists that you have come to know and love, don't give them your dollar.
Piracy is always an option.
What he said. What he said. Because you know, we're the artists, we're not getting money from it, so frickin' go ahead.
If purchasing isn't owing, piracy isn't stealing.
There you go. We have a question here.
So I know you became really successful in your line of work at a young age. Is there anything that like current you wish you could go back in time and tell young you about like your success or just anything, life advice, work advice?
Don't sign a contract for merchandise rights in perpetuity when you've just turned 18 and you're in a coffee shop. That would be number one. Yeah. I've made a lot of people and a lot of companies a lot of money. Like a lot of money. But I am not rich. Yeah. So, I don't know. That would be probably the only thing. But beyond that, I don't know. I think all of my successes and my losses, as hard as they may have been, they have made me who I am now. And I'm a firm believer in the whole, this had to happen for this to happen, for this to happen, for this to happen. And I wouldn't be married to my husband with my two phenomenal stepkids. I wouldn't have my now 21-year-old son, who's my world. Yeah. So, all the bumps along the way, they have to have been worth it.
We have time for one more question, but we will be back up at the table for another 2 hours, and we do have photo ops if you guys have missed that. Please get those around 5. That's when we're going to do those on this floor here. Right there.
Please tell me you're not cash only.
Not cash on.
Do you think Lonnette would, I don't want to say survive because she got me through my childhood, but do you think we two would bring her back? Because let's be honest, it shows down on me, I'm like, what the hell is this? I'm like, let me put this VCR in and you watch this. But do you think there's a chance that she would, A, come back in maybe a different style, and B, do you think she would thrive in 2025 as today's kids?
So I think a perfect example is Blue's Clues. I think the way that they kept, they brought it back with when Donovan, playing Joe, took over from Steve because Steve wanted to step away, and then we brought it back years later with Josh. And they didn't reinvent the wheel. They modernized it a little bit because, animation has gotten better, special effects have gotten better. But for the most part, it's the same show. So I would try to do it that same way. I think you could absolutely have Couch come back. But there are two things that I would do. I think you could still have Lonnette and Molly reading stories. And then you go into the story, and so you would have like these little, maybe 11-minute long episodes. But you could also do another whole season of 22 episodes. It starts with Lonnette on the couch and getting the letter that she's been invited to someplace to travel the world with Auntie Macassar. And her cousin is coming to stay. And we meet a new little clown, and I would want it to be a young person who would come in and would take over living on the couch with Molly. And then occasionally you'd have Lonnette and Auntie Macassar and Uncle Chester and whoever show up, along with, you could still have Major Bandhead and Granny Garbanzo. Like, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. We would just kind of do a little bit of a handoff.
Sounds like you're ready.
I am so ready. I should just be in charge of everything, and then the world would be perfect.
You guys have been so awesome. Thank you guys for coming out today on this Saturday afternoon. We're headed right back upstairs for autograph selfies. The professional photo ops are at 5, and then we'll be back tomorrow if you need to tell a friend. Thanks guys so much. Have a great rest of your day.
So you can get them at her table with her and the backdrop board on this floor. We can, if you'll come out with me actually. Of course. Sure. This way.
Okay.
And I just want to make sure that this gentleman gets by.
Bye guys. Thank you.
You too.
For listening.
Bye. No problem.
I know you have nothing to do with that, but you're the more than talk.
Well, I can understand that he thinks that we are fish. I spent before and what? When I started working there, that's what happened. Regular TV broadcaster. Love what you said.
Okay, okay.
All part of the industry.
Interesting.
That's good, you know, after the